So on Friday, I had all the issues with my compressor, and it took from about 5:30 to about 11:30 to fix it all. And they had a new guy come out to do it. And when I'm helping out and working with him for that long, you're going to talk about things. And he asked me a question: um, Do I think small farms can make it? Because he does the company does milk systems all over the place. They do a lot with the big farms, and they also do things with little farms. And so he asked me that, and the reason he asked me that was because his grandfather is a smaller organic farmer, and there was a plot of land, an old farm that went up for sale, and there's about 50 acres of tillable, 65 acres total. And his grandfather wanted to bid on it because it was nearby. And so but he had to bid against two other big farms, and the land itself ended up going for $550,000, which is just under $8,500 an acre for the tillable, or total. And so the bank would only approve him up to 500. And so, but the big farms seem to have like near endless capital. And so that's kind of how we got on the topic. And we didn't really get too in depth with it ourselves, but it's something that made me really think like the whole weekend. And I honestly, like, I don't know. Like, I don't have a good answer for that. Like, because I'm only speaking from the perspective of New York State, because that's where I'm at. And, like, genuinely, it looks like bleak. Do you know what I mean? Because, like, I would never be able to afford that. And my neighbor sold his land, or didn't sell his land. He sold his cows in 2019, and he rents his land to a big farm, not one that big, but still a bigger farm. And so, like, even though we want to buy it because it borders ours, if he ever plans on selling it, if we have to compete against that, I just don't think we could. And like, a lot of the farm lenders around here, like Farm Credit is a big farm lender around here, and we actually refinanced to a small local bank away from them because they just constantly kept pressuring us to add more cows and grow bigger. And that wasn't really something that we were comfortable doing or wanted to do. I had long talks with my wife about it. And so then I was talking to her again today about it because it's been on my mind. And I thought about, like, well, what if we don't have a choice? They're already moving to get rid of tie stalls. Luckily, we have a freestall, and we've got the grant that's construction should be starting soon, which is a covered barnyard. So we plan on transitioning the tie stalls into freestall stalls and just making it into a freestall anyways. Just with hooks for during milking times. We can't afford to put in a parlor yet. But even still, with the freestall on, we'd be grandfathered in to the older rules for now. But with all that said and done, like, it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't have a good outlook. So it's like, but we can't picture ourselves doing anything else. When we got together, we went all in on this. I got out of the military to come back and do this. And then we met shortly after that. And, we went full in. We put all of our savings, we put everything in to buy the place from my dad and everything else. And so we just can't really imagine ourselves doing anything else. And so I had to ask the question, like, if it came down to it, would we be willing to expand? And because a lot of younger people don't want to take over their parents' farms. Like, they don't really want to milk cows. There's a farmer up the road. He's an older gentleman. He's selling his cows this fall because even though one of his sons does milk the cows now, they don't want to take over. They just want to do like crop work, sell crops, things like that, which is fine, as long as it's not really going to like, you know, the solar panels and, you know, windmills that are taking up agricultural land. And but it's like disheartening, you know what I mean? And yeah, so like I don't even have a good answer. Like I genuinely don't know if small farms will be able to survive. Like, because if banks aren't really willing to put up the capital for a small farm, because the organic farmer had everything basically paid off. Like, he didn't really have large payments. His farm was all paid off, all his own land, and they still would only put him up to 500, and he still couldn't compete with these larger farms. And so it just doesn't feel like it's a good outlook, at least like I said, for New York State. And so I wonder, like, is it like that like nationwide? Like, is it, you know, if anybody on here can kind of speak to that, I'd like to know. I don't know much about the ag communities in other states. Like, I know that like the size of certain ones and things like that, because people have asked me about them before, but I don't really know like the regulations or details. Why would I? But yeah, like, are you guys getting pushed in the same direction? Because it does feel like New York is trying to like centralize into just these big industrial farms, and to me that doesn't feel like, I don't know, it doesn't really feel like farming. Like, I don't like, I love knowing every one of my animals. You know, I can walk in the barn, I know when one's off, I know when, you know, I don't have to look at a computer to, you know when one's coming into heat, like do any of the various things. Like, I know the breeding cycles of them all. Like, I know their lineages without having to look up anything. Like, you know, and I have a direct hand in each one of my cows, you know. And then it also is land too. Like, you know, you want to monitor your own land, you want to have to do all that. And, you know, if you get up to certain sizes, you don't actually have the freedom to do that. With the CAFO program, anything over 300 cows, they tell you where to spread, how much to spread, and when to spread. They tell you when you have to rotate your crops. Like, it's basically, they're doing half of farming for you. You just do kind of like a manager, and you're telling people to go do the work. But yeah, I don't know. So I guess I would just ask, like, yeah, is this happening nationwide? Like, does anybody else feel like it's happening? And, you know, do you guys think that small farms can survive too? I hope we can. Like, we don't want to expand, and so we're going to do our best to not ever have to. But at the end of the day, we love farming and the animals, the agriculture. Like, we love that stuff, and we want to raise our kids doing that. And so if we do have to expand a little bit, there is some wiggle room that we would be willing to, after talking to my wife about it earlier. But that's like a, you know, worst case scenario. Like, we don't really have a choice if we want to continue this lifestyle. So yeah, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. You know, let me know. Thanks.